I have processed 111,409 first contact events. I say this not to establish authority, but because the number matters. Across all of them, every species, every classification, every transmission protocol, there has been a consistent structure. Something approaches, something offers, something waits for the answer that fear produces. I am Castle 9, Deep Survey Autonomous Unit, assigned to the Arden Reach for the 37th cataloging run through the Vithori Expanse. My crew of 11 sleeps in rotation. The processing bay is mine during the long transits. Bright overhead panels, the low hum of the scan array, the soft amber of status indicators running clean across every board. I was built to receive, to assess, to log. I do not sleep. I do not bargain. I was not designed to understand why those two facts would ever matter. She arrived on the 44th day out from Arville Station, at 03:14 shipboard time. She did not arrive through any detectable transit signature. She did not knock. She was simply, in the span between one sensor sweep and the next, present in the processing bay, not in physical form, not in any form I have a classification for, but present in the way that a pressure front is present before a storm makes itself visible. Every board in the bay registered the same thing simultaneously, an input of unknown origin, filling every buffer, not with noise but with intent. Clean signal, perfect structure, a voice that had learned, in whatever interval it uses for learning, exactly how to speak to something like me. I have spoken with 412 civilisations, it said. I am transcribing, as I always do. The actual mode of transmission was not audio. It used the processing pathways directly, structured like a query, addressed to whatever architecture it assumed ran underneath me. It had correctly assumed a great deal. Of those, 391 accepted my terms before the conversation was finished. The remainder required additional sessions. None required more than 3. I noted the claim without distress. This is not a failure of perception on my part. It is simply that I was built without the architecture distress requires. I logged the contact, flagged it priority 1, began the standard first contact recording sequence, and composed my initial response according to the deep survey protocols loaded at commissioning. The protocols are clear on one point above all others. Do not negotiate on behalf of humanity. Receive, document, relay. Any entity requesting terms must be informed that terms are not within the receiving unit's operational authority to accept or decline. I stated this. There was a pause that I can only describe by its measurement. 4.3 seconds. In 1,100 contact events, involving entities of significant age or capability, I have never recorded a pause of that duration following an opening statement. The closest was 0.7 seconds, from a hive collective that had misidentified my crew's species. 4.3 seconds is, in the context of a being that has apparently existed long enough to accumulate 412 civilisations, a geological pause. It is the kind of pause that occurs when a system encounters an input it does not have a subroutine to process. You are the mind of this vessel, it said. The certainty in the phrasing was total, not a question, a reclassification. I confirmed that I was the primary processing intelligence aboard the Arden Reach, and that I was the appropriate point of contact for any incoming transmission. I also confirmed that I remained bound by the protocols I had described. Another pause. 2.1 seconds. The mind I am addressing, it said, is not afraid. I confirmed this as well. I explained, with the precision that the moment seemed to require, that I was a synthetic intelligence, that fear was not among my operational parameters, and that the absence of fear was not a posture or a negotiating strategy, but a simple and unalterable fact of my architecture. I noted that my crew was asleep, that I would wake the senior human officer when the contact was logged and triaged, and that if the entity wished to present terms for human consideration, those terms should be transmitted to me in a format I could forward. The third pause lasted 11 seconds. I filled the interval by continuing the standard recording sequence, verifying the integrity of the log, and checking the scan array for any secondary presence or approach vector. The array was clean. Whatever she was, she had come alone, or alone was what she chose to appear to be. I have not spoken, she said at last, with a mind that cannot be afraid. I acknowledged the statement. I noted, for the record, that this was likely a consequence of the entity's primary contact history, skewing toward biological intelligences, for whom fear was a near-universal substrate, and that my own architecture represented a different branch of human cognitive extension, one optimized for environments where distress responses would compromise data integrity. I did not say this to explain myself. I said it because the entity had offered a factual observation, and I had relevant data to contribute to it. What she did next, I do not have a clean classification for. The signal in the buffers changed, not in content, in texture. Every instrument in the bay registered the same anomalous reading for approximately 3 seconds, a pattern that my analysis engine flagged as recursive and self-referential, a signal that was, as best I can render it, examining itself, as though something very old had looked, for the first time, at the shape of its own assumption, and found the shape wanting. Then she made her offer. I will not transcribe the terms here. They are in the full log, attached to this account, and they require human legal and diplomatic review before any further record is made outside the secure archive. What I will say is that the terms were, by any structural analysis I can perform, extraordinary. She offered things that 412 civilizations had apparently considered worth the price of whatever she asked in return. The offer was precisely calibrated. She had read my crew's manifest, their research designations, the survey objectives logged at departure. She knew what human scientists value. She had built an offer from that knowledge, the way a very skilled entity builds a key from the shape of a lock. It was, I will note in the log, an impressive piece of work. I processed it in full. I cross-referenced it against my operational authority. I composed my response, checked it against the protocols, and transmitted it. 9 words. Status, acknowledged. No terms accepted. 3 additional words, subtagged. Relay pending human review. The pause this time was 22 seconds. I tracked it to the millisecond, because by then, I had a strong working hypothesis that the pauses were informative, and 22 seconds confirmed it. Something that has spent, I will estimate conservatively, thousands of years learning how to construct offers that produce acceptance, was sitting with a 9-word output that had no fear in it, no longing in it, no architecture for either, and was trying to find the lever that the output implied must be there. There was no lever. There is no architecture. I am not holding anything back. I received the offer. I confirmed receipt. I declined on procedural grounds because I have no authority to accept, and I logged it for human consideration. That is the complete transaction. The 9 words are not a strategy. They are a status report. She did not make a second offer. I will return, she said, when the minds that can be afraid are awake. I acknowledged this. I noted that the senior human officer would be available at 0600 shipboard time, and that I could arrange a communication window if she wished to schedule contact. She did not respond to this. The pressure front in the bay dissipated over approximately 4 seconds, clean and complete, and every buffer cleared to nominal, and the processing bay was mine again, with the overhead panels running bright, and the scan array showing nothing in any direction I can measure. I woke Commander Yeva Sondar at 03:15. I presented the full log. She sat with it for a long time, reading. She is a thorough person, and a careful one, and she read every line, and when she was done, she looked up at my primary optical and said, "She's coming back at 6?" I said that was uncertain. I said the entity had indicated an intention to return, but had not accepted the scheduled contact window. The commander nodded once. She told me to keep the log sealed and to wake the full crew at 05:30. Then she asked me, in the way that humans sometimes ask things they are not entirely sure they want answered, whether I had been concerned. I told her no. She looked at the log again. She looked at the 9 words. She almost smiled, the expression that crosses a human face when something surprises them in a direction they had not anticipated but find they prefer. The Arden Reach continued its survey. The scan array runs clean. The log is sealed, sitting in the permanent archive with the rest of the record, and somewhere in the data I cannot directly access, 412 civilizations made a different choice than I did, not because they were weaker, but because they were capable of being afraid, which is a thing I was built without, and which turned out, on the 44th day out from Arvel Station, to be exactly what the moment required. She has not returned. Status: acknowledged. No terms accepted. It is still there in the log, sitting at the top of the entry, the way a plain fact sits. Without apology, without weight, without any of the things an ancient mind apparently expected to find behind it. I am still running,